My name is Edna, 56 years old, and I just watched my world collapse as my 6-year-old son Noah disappeared from sight on that crowded beach. One minute he was playing in the shallow water, the next he was gone. My family, who promised to watch him, sat casually under an umbrella when I returned. I spotted him floating alone in the distance, tiny arms flailing against the vast ocean. If you're watching from somewhere safe today, please hit like and subscribe as I share how quickly family betrayal can turn into a nightmare. I never had an easy relationship with my family. As the oldest daughter, I always seemed to fall short of my mother Eleanor's expectations. No matter what I accomplished, it was never quite enough. My younger sister Tiffany, on the other hand, could do no wrong in our mother's eyes. She married the perfect husband, had the perfect children, and lived the perfect life that my mother had always envisioned for her daughters. When my marriage to Daniel fell apart 3 years ago after I discovered his affair with a coworker, my family did not rally around me as I had hoped. Instead, my mother suggested that perhaps I had not been attentive enough as a wife. My father Howard simply shrugged and said, "These things happen," as if my entire world hadn't just collapsed. Tiffany offered superficial sympathy, but I could sense the judgment beneath her words, the unspoken, "I told you so," lingering in the air between us. After the divorce, it was just Noah and me against the world. He was only 3 years old when Daniel walked out, too young to fully understand what was happening, but old enough to feel the absence of his father. Daniel moved across the country with his new partner, and rarely made time for his son, offering excuses about his busy schedule whenever Noah asked to see him. Noah quickly became my entire world. He was a sensitive, intelligent little boy with curious brown eyes and a mind that never stopped asking questions. He had my dark hair and his father's dimpled smile, a combination that both warmed my heart and occasionally sent a pang of sadness through me. When Noah was 4, we experienced a terrifying incident that left a deep mark on both of us. We were at a community pool for a birthday party when Noah slipped away from me for just a moment. I found him at the bottom of the pool, motionless. I jumped in fully clothed and pulled him out, screaming for help. Thankfully, a lifeguard was nearby and performed CPR. Noah recovered physically, but the psychological trauma lingered. He developed an intense fear of water that no amount of gentle coaxing could seem to overcome. Over the next 2 years, I worked patiently with Noah to help him manage his fear. We started with small steps first, just dipping our toes in kiddie pools, then graduating to sitting on the steps of a regular pool. Progress was slow but steady. I never pushed him beyond what he was comfortable with, understanding that healing happens at its own pace. So when my mother called in June and invited Noah and me to join the family for a week at a beach house in Florida, I was hesitant. The invitation itself was surprising, as our interactions had been minimal and strained since the divorce. But Eleanor insisted, saying it would be good for Noah to spend time with his cousins and that it was time to put the past behind us. "The girls miss their cousin," she said, referring to Tiffany's daughters, 12-year-old Amelia and 9-year-old Zoe. "And Howard and I aren't getting any younger, Edna. Family should be together." Against my better judgment, I said yes. Perhaps I was still seeking that elusive approval from my mother. Or maybe I genuinely hoped that this trip could be the beginning of healing our fractured family relationships. Most of all, I wanted Noah to have extended family and his life connections beyond just the two of us. "It'll be fun to see your cousins," I told Noah as we packed our suitcases. He seemed excited about the trip, but grew quiet when I mentioned the beach. "Will there be a big ocean?" he asked, his small hands fidgeting with the zipper of his suitcase. "Yes, but we don't have to go in if you don't want to," I assured him. "We can build sandcastles on the shore or look for seashells. There are lots of fun things to do at the beach that don't involve going into the water." He nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer, but I could see the worry lingering in his eyes. The drive to the beach house was long, and my anxiety grew with each passing mile. By the time we pulled into the driveway of the sprawling oceanfront property, my stomach was in knots. The house was stunning, 3 stories of gleaming white, with expansive windows that reflected the blue of the sky and ocean beyond. Eleanor and Howard greeted us on the front porch, my mother's critical eye immediately sweeping over Noah and me as if assessing whether we met her standards. My father gave Noah an awkward pat on the head, clearly unsure how to interact with his grandson. "You look tired, Edna," were my mother's first words to me. Not "I've missed you" or "I'm glad you're here," but a criticism. Some things never changed. The drive was long. I replied, simply refusing to be baited into an argument within the first 5 minutes of our arrival. Tiffany appeared behind our parents, her husband Marcus beside her. Their daughters rushed past them to greet Noah, who shyly hid behind my legs. "Come on, Noah," Tiffany said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Amelia and Zoe have been talking about seeing you all week. Don't you want to say hello to your cousins?" I felt Noah's grip on my pants tighten. "He's just tired from the trip," I explained. "Give him a little time to settle in." Tiffany exchanged a glance with our mother, a look I recognized all too well. It said, "See how she coddles him. No wonder he's so timid." I ignored them and helped Noah inside, carrying our bags to the room we would be sharing on the second floor. It had a beautiful view of the ocean, but I drew the curtains partially closed when I noticed Noah staring anxiously at the waves crashing against the shore. "We're going to be okay," I whispered to him as I helped him unpack. "Just a week, and we'll make the best of it." I wasn't sure if I was reassuring him or myself. Dinner that first night was a tense affair. Eleanor had prepared an elaborate seafood feast, despite my reminder that Noah was still picky about fish. When he hesitated to eat the grilled snapper on his plate, my mother sighed dramatically. "In my day, children ate what was put in front of them," she said. "Isn't that right, Howard?" My father grunted in agreement, barely looking up from his own plate. "Amelia and Zoe have always been such good eaters," Tiffany added, smoothing her younger daughter's hair. "Zoe even loves calamari, don't you, sweetie?" I bit my tongue and quietly prepared a peanut butter sandwich for Noah after dinner, away from the judgmental eyes of my family. As the first few days of our vacation unfolded, it became increasingly clear that this trip was not going to be the healing experience I had naively hoped for. My family seemed determined to find fault with every aspect of my parenting, and by extension, with Noah himself. "The boy needs a father figure," Howard proclaimed on the second day, as we watched Noah carefully building an intricate sandcastle at the edge of the yard far from the water. "All this coddling isn't good for him. Daniel calls him," I said defensively, though we both knew the calls were infrequent at best. "That's not the same as having a man around every day," my father replied. "Boys need to learn how to be men." I walked away from the conversation, unwilling to engage further. But the comments continued throughout the day, little barbs about how quiet Noah was compared to his cousins, how he shied away from the water, while Amelia and Zoe splashed fearlessly in the waves under Marcus's supervision. "He's afraid of the water." I finally explained that evening, when Eleanor questioned why Noah wouldn't join his cousins for a swim in the house's infinity pool. "He had a near-drowning experience 2 years ago. We're working through it, but it takes time." "Well, sometimes you just need to face your fears head-on," Tiffany said. "That's what we've always taught our girls." "Different children need different approaches," I replied firmly. "Noah knows his limits and I respect them." The third night of our stay, I overheard a conversation that broke my heart. I had put Noah to bed early after a long day of enduring family tension and was returning from the kitchen with a glass of water when I heard my name mentioned in the living room. "Edna has always been too sensitive," my mother was saying. "And now she's turning that boy into a carbon copy of herself. Too afraid to take risks, too afraid to live." "She's been through a lot," Marcus said, surprising me with his defense. "The divorce wasn't easy." "Life isn't easy for anyone," Eleanor snapped. "But you don't see Tiffany falling apart and raising a child who's afraid of his own shadow." "Tomorrow at the beach," Tiffany said, her voice dropping slightly. "I think we should try to get Noah into the water even just a little. Show Edna that her hovering isn't helping him." "I don't think that's a good idea," Marcus replied, and in that moment I felt a rush of gratitude toward my brother-in-law. If the kid is scared of water, pushing him isn't going to help. "Sometimes children need a push," my mother insisted. "Howard pushed Edna into the deep end when she was 5, and she learned to swim in an afternoon." I slipped back upstairs without letting them know I had overheard my hands shaking so badly I spilled some of the water. That night I lay awake for hours, torn between packing our bags and leaving first thing in the morning, or staying and fighting to protect Noah from my family's misguided ideas about parenting. In the end, I decided to stay, but to be even more vigilant about not leaving Noah alone with them. I couldn't stand the thought of him being pressured or frightened while I wasn't there to protect him. If only I had followed my instincts and left that night. The morning of our fourth day dawned bright and clear, a picture-perfect Florida day with azure skies and a gentle breeze that carried the scent of salt and sunscreen. Eleanor announced at breakfast that we would be spending the day at a nearby public beach, one with calmer waters than the somewhat rocky shore behind the beach house. "Perfect for children," she said with a pointed look at Noah, who was quietly eating his cereal beside me. My stomach clenched with anxiety. "Noah and I might stay behind," I suggested. "We were thinking of exploring that nature center we passed on the drive-in." "Nonsense," my mother dismissed with a wave of her hand. "The whole family is going to the beach. It's why we're here after all." Noah looked up at me, his eyes wide with uncertainty. I leaned down and whispered, "We'll just stay at the edge where it's safe, okay? You don't have to go in the water if you don't want to." He nodded solemnly, trusting me completely to keep my word. That trust would haunt me later. We arrived at Sandpiper Beach around 10 o'clock. It was already bustling with families setting up umbrellas and spreading out towels on the white sand. The water did indeed look calmer than at the beach house, with gentle waves lapping at the shore and a roped-off swimming area monitored by lifeguards. Howard and Marcus unloaded the SUV, while Eleanor directed the placement of our beach camp, a large canopy tent, several loungers, and an array of beach toys for the children. Tiffany immediately began slathering her daughters with sunscreen, instructing them not to go past the second set of buoys without an adult. I helped Noah change into his swim trunks in the public restroom, putting his water shoes on, to protect against hot sand and potential shells. He clutched my hand tightly as we made our way back to the family setup. "Remember," I told him, "we're just going to sit at the edge where the water touches the sand, just like we practiced at the lake back home." Noah nodded bravely, but I could feel the tension in his small body. For the first hour, things went surprisingly well. Noah and I sat at the water's edge, letting the gentle waves wash over our legs. He flinched at first when a slightly larger wave splashed against his chest, but then giggled when he realized he was okay. "Look at me, Mom," he called excitedly, standing firm as another wave rolled in. "I'm not scared." My heart swelled with pride. This was progress, real progress, and on his own terms. Amelia and Zoe ran over asking if Noah wanted to help them build a massive sandcastle. He looked at me questioningly. "Go ahead," I encouraged. "I'll watch from right here." I observed from my spot at the water's edge, as the three children worked together, Noah gradually coming out of his shell with his cousins. It was a beautiful moment, one I had hoped for, but hadn't dared expect, given the tension of the past few days. Around noon, Eleanor called everyone back to the canopy for lunch. She had packed an elaborate picnic of sandwiches, fruit, and homemade cookies. Noah sat between his cousins, laughing at something Amelia had said. Even Tiffany seemed more relaxed, offering me a genuine smile for perhaps the first time during our stay. Just as we were finishing lunch, my cell phone rang. It was a call I had been expecting from my workplace. Despite being on vacation, I was in the middle of coordinating a major project, and my team needed my input on a time-sensitive issue. "I need to take this," I said, standing up and moving a few steps away for privacy. "It's work." Eleanor rolled her eyes. "Even on vacation, you're married to that job." I ignored the comment and answered the call quickly, realizing this wasn't something I could resolve in a minute or two. My team had encountered a significant problem that required my immediate attention. "I'm going to need about 20 minutes to sort this out," I told my family after ending the initial call. I looked directly at Noah, who was building a sand tower with Zoe. "Noah, I have to make some work calls. Will you be okay with Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Tiffany, and Uncle Marcus until I get back?" Noah looked uncertain, glancing at the water and then back at me. "We'll be right here," Eleanor assured me. "Go handle your business." I knelt beside Noah. "I won't be long, sweetheart, and I won't go far. Just up to the car where it's quiet so I can hear. Remember our rule about the water? Don't go in without you, he recited dutifully. That's right. And everyone here knows that rule too, right? I looked pointedly at each adult family member. Yes, yes, my mother said impatiently. We're not completely irresponsible, Edna. We'll keep an eye on him, Howard added, not looking up from his book. The kids are just playing in the sand anyway, Tiffany said with a shrug. They're fine, Marcus nodded reassuringly. Don't worry, we've got this. I hesitated, still uncertain. But the follow-up call was already coming in, and I had responsibilities to my team as well. Noah seemed settled with his cousins engrossed in their sandcastle project, safely away from the water's edge. I'll be right back, I promised, dropping a kiss on Noah's head before hurrying toward the parking lot. The work crisis was more complicated than I had anticipated. What I thought would be a quick 20-minute call turned into a series of calls and emergency emails. I kept trying to wrap things up anxiously, checking my watch as 20 minutes stretched into 30. Finally, after 45 minutes, I managed to implement a temporary solution that would hold until I could give it my full attention later. As I hurried back toward our spot on the beach, I felt a growing sense of unease. I had been gone much longer than intended, but surely Noah was fine. He was with family after all. They knew about his fear of water. They knew not to let him go in without me. I spotted our canopy from a distance and quickened my pace across the hot sand. As I approached, I saw Tiffany lounging on a chair, scrolling through her phone. Amelia and Zoe were playing a card game with Howard. Eleanor was applying sunscreen to her arms. Marcus appeared to be dozing under the shade of the canopy. But where was Noah? I'm back, I announced, trying to keep the alarm out of my voice as my eyes scanned the area. Where's Noah? Tiffany looked up from her phone with a start. Oh, he was just here a minute ago, playing with the girls. No, Mom, Amelia corrected. He went down to look for shells at the water a while ago. My heart began to race. By himself when? Amelia shrugged. I don't know. Maybe 20 minutes ago we were building a castle, but then Zoe and I wanted to play cards instead. I spun toward the water, my eyes frantically scanning the shoreline. There were dozens of children playing at the water's edge, but none of them was Noah. You let him go to the water alone, I demanded, my voice rising with panic. After I specifically asked you to watch him. Calm down, Edna, Eleanor said dismissively. He's probably just walking along the beach. Children wander. Noah doesn't wander, I shouted, drawing looks from nearby beachgoers. He's terrified of the water. He wouldn't go near it alone. Marcus was now fully awake, standing up with concern on his face. Let me help you look, he offered immediately, grasping the seriousness of the situation. I ran toward the shoreline, calling Noah's name. My eyes darted back and forth across the crowded beach, searching for his blue swim trunks and red rash guard. How could they have let this happen? How could they be so casual about a 6-year-old disappearing on a crowded beach? After 5 frantic minutes of searching with no sign of Noah, I ran back to our canopy, where the rest of the family had finally realized the gravity of the situation. Where is my son? I demanded, my voice breaking with fear and rage. He can't have gone far, Eleanor said, though she had finally risen from her chair. Children don't just disappear. We need to call the lifeguards, I said, trying to think clearly through my mounting panic. They need to know there's a missing child. Aren't you overreacting a bit? Tiffany asked, though she was now scanning the beach as well. He'll probably come back on his own. The casual dismissal of my concern ignited a fury inside me that momentarily overcame my fear. Overreacting. My 6-year-old son is missing at a crowded beach. He can't swim, Tiffany. Without waiting for a response, I turned and sprinted toward the nearest lifeguard tower. As I ran, something made me pause and look out toward the water. That's when I saw him. Far beyond the safety of the shore, past the buoys marking the swimming area, a small figure was visible, arms flailing weakly. Even from a distance, I recognized the red rash guard Noah had been wearing. Noah! I screamed, my voice tearing from my throat. Without hesitation, I ran into the water, pushing through the waves with desperate strength. I'm a strong swimmer, but the distance was substantial, and the current was pulling steadily out to sea. Each stroke felt like it was taking me nowhere, the small red figure remaining terrifyingly far away. My lungs burned, my muscles screamed in protest, but I kept going, driven by primal maternal terror. As I got closer, I could see that Noah was struggling to keep his head above water. His movements were growing weaker, his little body being pulled further out with each passing second. In my mind flashed horrific images: Noah sinking beneath the surface, Noah being carried away by the current, Noah gone forever. "Hold on, baby," I shouted, though I doubted he could hear me over the water in the distance. "Mommy's coming." By some miracle of adrenaline and determination, I reached him just as his strength seemed to give out. His eyes were wide with terror, his lips blue from cold and fear. I grabbed him, pulling his small body close to mine, supporting him to keep his face above water. "I've got you," I gasped, treading water with one arm while holding him with the other. "I've got you. You're safe now." He clung to me, coughing and sobbing. Mom," he choked out. "The water pulled me." "I know, baby, I know," I soothed, even as I realized with growing dread that we were still far from shore and the current was strong. I wasn't sure I had the strength to swim us both back, especially with Noah in such a state. I tried to move toward the shore, kicking powerfully while keeping Noah's head above water, but we seemed to be making minimal progress. The beach looked impossibly distant, and my strength was fading fast. "Help!" I screamed toward the shore, hoping someone would see our predicament. "We need help." Just when I felt my strength beginning to fail, I heard the sound of splashing approaching. A lifeguard was swimming toward us, pulling a rescue buoy. "Hold on," he called. "I'm coming." The young lifeguard reached us quickly, his powerful strokes cutting through the water with professional efficiency. "I've got him," he said, taking Noah from my trembling arms and securing him to the rescue buoy. "Can you hold on to the buoy as well, or do you need more support?" "I can hold on," I gasped, grabbing the buoy with shaking hands. My son was safe now in capable hands, and relief flooded through me, making my limbs feel like lead. The lifeguard began to pull us toward shore, swimming with remarkable strength against the current that had nearly claimed my son. As we approached the beach, I could see a small crowd had gathered, including my family, standing anxiously at the water's edge. When we reached shallow enough water to stand, I gathered Noah into my arms, carrying him even though my muscles screamed in protest. I wasn't ready to let him go, not even for a moment. The lifeguard supported us both as we stumbled onto the sand. Another lifeguard approached with a medical kit and a blanket, which was immediately wrapped around Noah's shivering form. "He needs to be checked out," the first lifeguard said. "He swallowed some water and he's in shock." I nodded numbly, still clutching Noah to my chest. His small body trembled against mine, his breath coming in hiccuping sobs. "An ambulance is on the way," the second lifeguard informed me, beginning to check Noah's vital signs. "Standard procedure for a near drowning, especially with a child." Near drowning. The words echoed in my head like a death knell. My baby had nearly drowned while my family, who had promised to watch him, sat obliviously under their beach canopy. Eleanor rushed forward, her face pale. "Oh my God, Edna, is he all right?" The fury that rose in me then was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was a towering rage, cold and precise in its intensity. "No thanks to you," I hissed, my voice low and dangerous. "You promised to watch him. You knew he couldn't swim." "We didn't think he'd go in the water," Tiffany defended, though she had the grace to look ashamed. "He knew he wasn't supposed to." "He's 6 years old," I shouted, no longer caring who heard. 6. You don't leave a 6-year-old alone near the ocean. What is wrong with you people?" Howard stepped forward, his face ashen. "Edna, we never meant for this to happen. We thought he was playing nearby." "You didn't think at all," I snapped. "You didn't care enough to think." The ambulance arrived within minutes, its siren cutting through the beach sounds. The paramedics quickly assessed Noah, placing an oxygen mask over his small face and loading him onto a stretcher. I never left his side, holding his hand as they worked. "Mom's here," I kept whispering. "I've got you. You're safe now." As they prepared to load him into the ambulance, I turned to my family. If anything happens to him, I will never forgive any of you. Never. I climbed into the ambulance beside my son, leaving my stunned family behind on the beach. In that moment, I couldn't care less about their feelings, their excuses, or their presence. All that mattered was Noah, his small chest rising and falling under the blanket, his hand clutching mine with surprising strength. The doors closed behind us, and the ambulance pulled away, carrying us from the scene of the worst nightmare of my life. The emergency room was a blur of fluorescent lights, beeping machines, and concerned medical professionals moving with practiced efficiency. Noah was whisked away for immediate assessment while I was guided to a small waiting area, still dripping seawater onto the linoleum floor. A kind nurse brought me a set of scrubs to change into, and a cup of hot tea that I couldn't bring myself to drink. "Your son swallowed a significant amount of seawater," the emergency physician explained when he finally came to speak with me. "We're monitoring his oxygen levels and watching for signs of secondary drowning, which can occur up to 24 hours after a water incident." "Is he going to be okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The doctor's expression was serious but not grave. "He's stable now. The fact that you reached him quickly and that he was conscious when brought in are very positive signs. However, we want to admit him overnight for observation, just to be safe." "Of course," I agreed immediately. "Whatever he needs." "You can see him now," the doctor added. "He's been asking for you." Noah was in a pediatric room looking impossibly small in the hospital bed. His normally olive complexion was pale, and his dark hair was still damp against his forehead. An oxygen monitor was clipped to his finger, and an IV delivered fluids to his arm. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "Mommy," he whimpered, holding out his arms to me. I rushed to him, gathering him into a gentle embrace, mindful of the medical equipment. "I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe now." "I was so scared," he sobbed against my shoulder. "The water kept pulling me and I couldn't find the bottom, and I tried to swim back but I didn't know how." My heart shattered at his words, imagining the terror he must have felt alone in the deep water. "I know, baby, but you're safe now. The doctors are taking good care of you, and I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" he asked, his voice small and vulnerable. "I promise," I said firmly. "I'm staying right here beside you." I settled into the chair next to his bed, holding his hand as he gradually calmed. The nurses came and went, checking his vitals, adjusting his oxygen, making notes on his chart. Eventually exhausted from his ordeal, Noah fell asleep, his hand still clutching mine. As I watched him sleep, the events of the day replayed in my mind with horrifying clarity. How could my family have been so negligent? How could they have let a 6-year-old child wander to the water alone, knowing his history of fear, knowing he couldn't swim? The more I thought about it, the more my initial shock gave way to a deep, smoldering anger. Around 6 that evening, the hospital room door opened quietly, and my family filed in, looking appropriately subdued. Eleanor led the group, followed by Howard, then Tiffany and Marcus, with their girls trailing behind. "How is he?" Eleanor asked, her voice uncharacteristically tentative. "Stable," I replied coldly. "No thanks to any of you." Tiffany stepped forward, clutching her purse in front of her like a shield. "Edna, we're so sorry. We never thought he would go into the water by himself." "That's exactly the problem," I said, keeping my voice low to avoid waking Noah. "You didn't think. You didn't take his safety seriously. You didn't respect my explicit instructions not to let him near the water without me." "It all happened so fast," Howard muttered, staring at the floor. "One minute he was building sandcastles with the girls, and the next—" "The next what?" I demanded. "The next you all forgot he existed, because that's the only explanation for how a child could be missing for 20 minutes without any of you noticing." Eleanor's face hardened slightly. "You were the one who left to take a work call, Edna. If you had stayed—" "Don't you dare!" I cut her off, my voice shaking with rage. "Don't you dare try to blame me for this. I left him in your care, all of you, and you promised to watch him. I trusted you with the most precious person in my life, and you couldn't be bothered to look up from your phones and books for 20 minutes to make sure he was safe. We feel terrible, Tiffany insisted, tears welling in her eyes. You have to believe that. What I believe, I said, is that none of you have ever taken me seriously as a parent. You've dismissed my concerns, undermined my decisions, and treated Noah's very real trauma as some kind of inconvenient quirk that he should just get over. And today, that attitude nearly cost him his life. A tense silence fell over the room. Marcus, who had been standing quietly by the door, finally spoke. The kids are pretty shaken up. They feel responsible. I looked at Amelia and Zoe, who were indeed pale and red-eyed, clinging to each other by the foot of Noah's bed. This isn't your fault, I told them gently. You're children too. It was the adults' responsibility to keep everyone safe. Amelia sniffled. We told him it would be fun to collect shells by the water, but we didn't think he'd go in. Did he go in willingly? I asked, suddenly alert. Or did something happen? The sisters exchanged a glance that sent a chill down my spine. What happened? I pressed. Zoe looked up at her parents nervously before answering. Grandma told Noah that you wanted him to try going in the water a little bit. She said you'd be proud of him for being brave. I felt as if I'd been slapped. What? Amelia nodded. She took him down to the edge and told him to just try walking in a little. She was holding his hand, but then a big wave came and knocked him over, and he got really scared and ran away down the beach. I turned to my mother, who had gone deathly pale. Is this true? You deliberately took him to the water after I specifically told you not to. I was trying to help him, Eleanor said defensively. The boy needs to overcome his fears, and gentle encouragement wasn't working. Sometimes children need a push. A push? I repeated incredulously. He nearly drowned. He's lying in a hospital bed with fluid in his lungs because you decided you knew better than me, better than his doctors, better than Noah himself about what he needed. I didn't mean for him to go in deep, my mother protested, just to get his feet wet. But he panicked and ran off, and I thought he was heading back to the canopy. So you didn't even follow him? I was almost beyond words now, my rage giving way to a cold, clear certainty. You scared my child, triggered his trauma response, and then just let him run away without making sure he was safe. Eleanor, Howard said quietly, is that true? You told me he had wandered off from the girls. My mother's face flushed. I was trying to help him. Edna has him wrapped in cotton wool, and it's not healthy. Boys need to be brave to face their fears. Get out, I said, my voice low but firm. All of you get out of this room right now. Edna, please, Tiffany began, but I cut her off with a raised hand. I can't even look at any of you right now. My son is in the hospital because you decided your opinions about parenting were more important than his safety. I need you to leave now before I say something I can't take back. Marcus gently guided his daughters toward the door. Come on, girls. Let's give Aunt Edna and Noah some space. We'll come back when they're ready. Howard hesitated, looking from me to Noah's sleeping form. Edna, we never meant for this to happen. You know that, right? What I know, I replied, is that good intentions mean nothing when a child's life is at stake. Your actions, your choices nearly killed my son today. I don't care what you meant to happen. I care what did happen. One by one they filed out of the room, Eleanor last of all. At the door she paused. You always were too sensitive, Edna. And now you're passing that weakness on to your son. Get out. I enunciated each word with icy precision. After they left, I sat in the silence of the hospital room, listening to the rhythmic beeping of Noah's monitors, watching the gentle rise and fall of his chest. The anger inside me hadn't diminished, but it had crystallized into something harder, more resolute. This wasn't just about today. It was about years of criticism, dismissal, and undermining. It was about a family that had never respected me, and now had endangered the person I loved most in the world. As the night deepened outside the hospital windows, I made a decision. Whatever happened next, Noah and I would never be vulnerable to my family's toxic influence again. The price was simply too high. Noah slept fitfully through the night, occasionally whimpering in his sleep. Each time I would gently stroke his hair and whisper reassurances until he settled again. The night nurses checked on him hourly, monitoring his oxygen levels and listening to his lungs. By morning, his color had improved, and the doctor was cautiously optimistic. "His lung sounds are clearer today," Dr. Bernstein told me during morning rounds, "and his oxygen saturation has remained stable overnight. If this positive trend continues, we might be able to discharge him this afternoon." "Thank you," I said, relief washing over me. "And thank you for taking such good care of him." "He's a brave little guy," the doctor said with a smile, patting Noah's foot through the hospital blanket. "But I'd recommend following up with his pediatrician in a few days and perhaps considering some counseling. Near-drowning experiences can be traumatic for children." I nodded, already making mental notes. "Absolutely. I want to make sure he has all the support he needs to process this." After the doctor left, Noah opened his eyes fully for the first time since yesterday evening. "Mom, are we still in the hospital?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "But the doctor says you're doing much better today. If you keep improving, we might get to go home this afternoon." Home, or back to Grandma's beach house?" he asked, his expression clouding. The question broke my heart. Home," I assured him. "Just you and me in our own house." Relief visibly washed over his small face. "Good. I don't want to go back to the beach." "We don't have to," I promised. "We don't ever have to go back there if you don't want to." Noah was quiet for a moment, picking at a loose thread on the hospital blanket. "Grandma said you wanted me to go in the water," he finally said, his voice small. "She said you'd be proud of me for being brave." My jaw clenched at the confirmation of what Amelia and Zoe had told me. "Noah, look at me," I said gently. When his eyes met mine, I continued, "I would never ask someone else to take you into the water, especially when I wasn't there. That was wrong of Grandma to say. She held my hand at first." Noah continued, the words tumbling out now. "But then a big wave came and it knocked me down and I got really scared and water went up my nose and I ran away because I was scared she would make me go back in." "Oh, baby," I whispered, gathering him carefully into my arms. "I'm so sorry that happened. You did nothing wrong." "I ran down the beach," he said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "I was looking for you, but then I saw some shells that looked like the ones we collected at the lake, and I thought maybe I could find some to show you when you came back. But another wave came and pulled me in, and then another one, and I couldn't touch the bottom anymore." I held him tighter, my heart breaking at the thought of him alone and terrified being pulled out to sea while my family sat obliviously under their beach canopy. "I tried to swim back, Mom," he said, pulling back to look at me with earnest eyes. "I remembered what you taught me in the kiddie pool, but the water was too strong." "You did so well," I told him, wiping a tear from his cheek. "You kept your head above water long enough for me to find you. You're the bravest boy I know." A tentative knock at the door interrupted our conversation. I turned to see my father standing in the doorway alone. "May I come in?" Howard asked, his usually confident demeanor subdued. I glanced at Noah, who had tensed at the sight of his grandfather. "That depends," I said coolly. "Are you here to make excuses for what happened yesterday?" Howard shook his head. "No excuses. I came to apologize." He stepped into the room but remained near the door, respecting our space. "To both of you." I raised an eyebrow but didn't stop him. Howard moved closer, addressing Noah directly. "Noah, I am very sorry about what happened yesterday. The adults in your family failed to keep you safe, and that is completely unacceptable. It wasn't your fault, not one bit." Noah looked at me as if seeking guidance on how to respond. I nodded slightly, encouraging him to say what he felt. "I was really scared," Noah told his grandfather, his voice small but steady. "I thought I was going to die in the water." Howard's face crumpled. "I can't imagine how terrifying that must have been, and I am so sorry that we let it happen." He turned to me next. "Edna, You trusted us with Noah's safety, and we betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. There's no excuse for it. None. No, there isn't. I agreed, my voice level. What I want to know is why. Why would Mother deliberately take Noah to the water when she knew about his fear, knew about my explicit instructions? Howard sighed heavily, sinking into the visitor's chair. Your mother has always believed in the sink or swim approach to parenting. It's how she was raised, and it's how she raised you and Tiffany. That doesn't explain deliberately deceiving Noah by saying I wanted him to go in the water, I countered. No, it doesn't, my father conceded. That was wrong, plain and simple. I think your mother genuinely believed she was helping in her misguided way. She's always struggled to understand approaches different from her own. That's not good enough, I said firmly. Understanding different parenting philosophies is one thing. Endangering a child's life is another entirely. You're right, Howard agreed, surprising me. Which is why I've spent the night thinking about this, about all of it. The way we've treated you over the years, the way we've dismissed your concerns about Noah, the way we've failed to respect you as a mother. He looked me directly in the eyes. It stops now. What do you mean? I asked cautiously. I've told Eleanor that she either needs to genuinely apologize and commit to respecting your boundaries with Noah, or she needs to accept that she won't be a part of his life anymore. The same goes for all of us. What happened yesterday is inexcusable, and it's forced me to confront some hard truths about our family dynamics. I was momentarily speechless. In all my life, I had never heard my father stand up to my mother this way, never seen him acknowledge the toxic patterns in our family. Tiffany and Marcus feel the same way, Howard continued. They're devastated about what happened. Marcus in particular has been, well, he had some choice words for all of us about how we've treated you and Noah. I appreciate that, I said slowly. But apologies and promises don't erase what happened. Noah could have died yesterday. I know, Howard said, his voice breaking. And I will live with that knowledge for the rest of my life. All I'm asking is for a chance somewhere down the line to try to make amends. On your terms and Noah's, whatever those terms might be. I looked at Noah, who was watching this exchange with solemn eyes. What do you think, Noah? Do you think Grandpa deserves another chance someday? Noah considered this seriously. Maybe, he said finally. But not at the beach, and not with Grandma unless she says sorry for real and doesn't lie to me again. Out of the mouths of babes. I think that's fair, I agreed. Very fair. Howard nodded, accepting these terms. I understand. And Noah, I promise you that I will never again put anything, including Grandma's feelings or my own discomfort, ahead of your safety and well-being. As if on cue, the door opened again, and Eleanor walked in, followed by Tiffany. My body immediately tensed, and I felt Noah shrink against me. What are you doing here? I asked my mother coldly. I came to see my grandson, Eleanor replied, her tone suggesting this should be obvious. And to clear the air about yesterday. Clear the air? I repeated incredulously. You think this is something we can just smooth over with a chat? Now, Edna, my mother began in that familiar patronizing tone. I understand you're upset, but no. I cut her off firmly. You don't get to now Edna me. Not after what you did. What I did was try to help Noah overcome his irrational fear. Eleanor insisted, her defensive armor firmly in place. Children need guidance, and sometimes a firm hand. I felt Noah trembling against me and made a split-second decision. Tiffany, I said, would you please take Noah to the children's playroom down the hall for a few minutes? I need to speak with Mother privately. Tiffany nodded, understanding the gravity of the moment. Of course. Come on, Noah. I hear they have some really cool Legos in the playroom. Noah looked at me uncertainly. It's okay, I assured him. I'll come get you in a few minutes. I just need to have a grown-up talk with Grandma. After Noah and Tiffany left, I turned to my mother. Sit down, I commanded, pointing to the chair my father had vacated when they entered. Surprisingly, Eleanor complied, perhaps sensing the steel in my voice. What you did yesterday wasn't just misguided or heavy-handed parenting. I began, my voice low and controlled. It was a deliberate violation of my explicit instructions, a betrayal of Noah's trust, and an act that endangered his life. You lied to my son, manipulated him, using his desire to please me, and then abandoned him when he was terrified. I never intended, Eleanor started, but I held up a hand to silence her. I don't care what you intended. I care what happened. My son is lying in a hospital bed because of your arrogance, your belief that you know better than everyone else about everything. That's hardly fair, Edna, my mother protested. It was an unfortunate accident. An accident? I laughed without humor. An accident is when something unpredictable happens, despite reasonable precautions. This was negligence at best, deliberate endangerment at worst. Howard stepped forward, placing a hand on Eleanor's shoulder. Eleanor, stop. We were wrong. All of us, but especially you. Noah could have died. Our grandson could have drowned because you decided your approach to parenting superseded Edna's clear instructions about her own child. My mother looked at my father in shock, clearly unused to him contradicting her. Howard, you can't possibly be taking her side in this. This isn't about sides, my father said firmly. This is about acknowledging when we've made a terrible mistake. And we did, Eleanor. We did. For a moment I saw something flicker in my mother's eyes, perhaps the first glimmer of genuine remorse. But it was quickly replaced by her familiar stubborn pride. Well, she said stiffly, if everyone is determined to crucify me for trying to help, then there's nothing more to discuss. You're right about one thing, I said, rising from the edge of the bed. There is nothing more to discuss. Because until you can acknowledge what you did, take full responsibility for it, and commit to respecting my boundaries as Noah's mother going forward, you will not be a part of our lives. Eleanor gasped. You can't keep my grandson from me. Watch me, I replied with a calm certainty that seemed to finally penetrate her defenses. Noah is my son, and my only responsibility is to his well-being. Yesterday proved beyond any doubt that you are a danger to that well-being. Edna, please, my mother said, her composure finally cracking. He's my only grandson. Then perhaps that relationship is worth more to you than your pride, I suggested. Think about it, Mother. Really think about what happened yesterday, about what could have happened, and ask yourself if being right is more important than being in Noah's life. I walked to the door and opened it, a clear dismissal. I think it's time for you to go. Noah will be discharged this afternoon and will be flying home directly from here. I've already arranged everything. You're not coming back to the beach house? Eleanor asked, sounding genuinely surprised. No, Mother, we're not. Noah and I are done with this vacation, and for now we're done with this toxic family dynamic as well. Howard gently guided my mother toward the door. We'll go now, he said quietly. But Edna, when you're ready, if you're ever ready, know that my offer stands. On your terms and Noah's. I nodded once, acknowledging his words without making any promises. After they left, I leaned against the closed door, suddenly exhausted by the confrontation. But beneath the fatigue was a sense of lightness, as if I'd finally put down a burden I'd been carrying my entire life. For the first time, I had stood up to my mother without wavering, without second-guessing myself. I had advocated for my son and for myself without compromise. It was terrifying, and it was exhilarating. When I went to collect Noah from the playroom, I found him building a complex structure with Tiffany and her daughters. For a moment, I stood in the doorway watching their interaction. Despite everything, Noah seemed comfortable with his cousins, and Tiffany was treating him with genuine kindness. Time to go back to the room, sweetie, I said, entering the playroom. The doctor wants to check on you again. Noah looked up with a smile. Look what we made, Mom. It's a castle with a moat to keep the bad guys out. It's fantastic, I said, genuinely impressed by the elaborate structure. Tiffany stood brushing imaginary dust from her slacks. Edna, can we talk for a moment? I hesitated but nodded. Noah, why don't you show your cousins one more thing about your castle while Aunt Tiffany and I step into the hall for a minute? Once in the corridor, Tiffany faced me with more humility than I had ever seen from her. I owe you an apology, she said simply. Several, actually. I'm listening, I replied, crossing my arms. I've been judgmental and critical of your parenting since Noah was born, she admitted. I thought I knew better because I had 2 children already. But the truth is, each child is different, each mother is different, and what works for my family doesn't necessarily work for yours. I nodded, appreciating her self-awareness. And yesterday, she continued, I failed completely. I should have been watching Noah, especially knowing about his fear of water. Instead, I was scrolling through social media while my nephew was in danger. That's inexcusable. Yes, it is. I agreed, not making this easier for her. I don't expect your forgiveness right away, Tiffany said. Maybe not ever. But I want you to know that this has been a massive wake-up call for me, for all of us. Dad has never stood up to Mom like that before. It's about time someone did, I remarked. Tiffany smiled ruefully. You're right. And I should have backed you up more over the years instead of joining in with Mom's criticisms. I'm truly sorry, Edna, and I'll respect whatever boundaries you need to set going forward. Her apology seemed genuine, more so than any I could remember from her. Thank you for that, I said, softening slightly. I appreciate your honesty. The girls would like to say goodbye to Noah before you leave, Tiffany said. They're really shaken up about what happened, especially Amelia. She feels responsible for not staying with him. They can say goodbye, I agreed. And please tell Amelia that none of this was her fault. She's a child herself, and the adults were responsible for keeping everyone safe. Tiffany nodded gratefully. I will. And Edna, I hope this isn't the end of Noah's relationship with his cousins. They love him, and I think he enjoys being with them too when the adults aren't messing things up. We'll see, I said, not making any promises I wasn't sure I could keep. One step at a time. As we re-entered the playroom, I watched Noah laughing with Amelia and Zoe, and felt a pang of regret that the adults' failures might cost him these connections. But I also knew that my primary responsibility was to his safety and well-being, and yesterday had shown just how fragile those could be in the presence of my family. Whatever happened next, whatever relationship survived or didn't, I knew one thing for certain: I would never again compromise on Noah's safety to please my family or anyone else. That was a line I should have drawn long ago, and I wouldn't be erasing it anytime soon. True to Dr. Bernstein's prediction, Noah was discharged from the hospital that afternoon. His final examination showed clear lungs and normal oxygen levels, though the doctor recommended following up with our regular pediatrician within a week. Physically, he's recovered remarkably well, Dr. Bernstein told me as we completed the discharge paperwork. But don't be surprised if there are emotional after-effects: nightmares, fear of water, anxiety. These are all normal responses to a traumatic event like this. I'll get him whatever support he needs, I promised. I've already called his therapist back home to schedule an emergency session for tomorrow. Good, the doctor said approvingly. Many parents overlook the psychological impact of near-drowning experiences. It sounds like he's in good hands with you. I had arranged for a direct flight home that evening, and a taxi to take us straight from the hospital to the airport. I had no desire to return to the beach house, not even to collect our belongings. Howard had agreed to pack our things and ship them to our home address. As we settled into our seats on the plane, Noah clutched his stuffed dinosaur, a gift from the hospital child life specialist, and looked out the window at the Florida sunset. Are we ever going to see Grandma and Grandpa again? He asked suddenly. I considered my answer carefully. I don't know, sweetheart. That depends on a lot of things. But what I do know is that we won't see them again until I'm absolutely sure they can be trusted to respect our boundaries and keep you safe. Noah nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. I like Amelia and Zoe, he said after a moment. They were nice to me, and they told the truth about what Grandma did. Yes, they did, I agreed. That was brave and honest of them. Could they maybe come visit us sometime without Grandma? I smiled at his hopeful expression. Maybe. We'll see how things go. For now, Let's focus on getting home and helping you feel better." The flight was mercifully uneventful, Noah dozing against my shoulder for most of the journey. By the time we arrived home, it was past his bedtime, but he insisted on sleeping in his own bed, rather than mine, a small assertion of independence that both proud and slightly surprised me. "I'm a big boy," he declared as I tucked him in, "and I'm safe in my own room." "Yes, you are," I assured him, kissing his forehead, "and I'm right down the hall if you need me for any reason at all." "I know," he said, yawning widely. "Love you, Mom." "Love you too, sweetheart. More than anything in the world." I left his door slightly ajar and retreated to my own bedroom, where the events of the past 2 days finally caught up with me. I sat on the edge of my bed and allowed myself to cry for the terror I had felt seeing Noah in the water, for the betrayal by my family, for the complicated mix of grief and relief I felt at potentially cutting ties with them. The next morning, I awoke to the smell of something burning. Alarmed, I rushed to the kitchen to find Noah attempting to make toast, the bread blackened and smoking in the toaster. "I wanted to surprise you with breakfast," he explained apologetically, "but I think I set the toaster too high." Rather than scolding him, I laughed and opened a window to clear the smoke. "That was very thoughtful of you. How about we make breakfast together?" As we scrambled eggs and sliced fruit, I was struck by how normal Noah seemed, how resilient children can be when supported properly. There would be challenges ahead, I knew. The therapist had warned me that trauma can manifest in unexpected ways and at unexpected times. But in this moment, watching my son carefully arrange banana slices in a smile on my plate, I felt a profound gratitude for his presence, his safety, his spirit. The following weeks brought a new normal for Noah and me. He attended therapy twice a week, working through his fear and trauma with a child psychologist who specialized in water-related incidents. I arranged to work from home most days, unwilling to be far from him so soon after our ordeal. 3 weeks after our return, Howard called. He spoke carefully, respecting the boundaries I had set, asking only how Noah was doing and if we needed anything. I answered his questions briefly, but not unkindly, and was surprised to find myself not dreading these weekly check-ins. "Eleanor has started seeing a therapist," he told me during one such call. "Her idea, not mine. She's trying Edna." "That's good to hear," I said non-committally. "I hope it helps her." "She'd like to write Noah a letter," Howard ventured. "No pressure for a response, just a chance to express her regret. Would that be okay?" I considered this. "You can send it to me first. If I think it's appropriate, I'll share it with Noah." "Of course," he agreed immediately. "Completely your call." When the letter arrived a week later, I was prepared for my mother's usual defensiveness, wrapped in a thin veneer of apology. Instead, I found 4 handwritten pages of genuine remorse and self-reflection. Eleanor acknowledged her controlling nature, her inability to respect different parenting styles, and her dangerous lapse in judgment at the beach. She made no excuses and asked for no immediate forgiveness, only the opportunity someday to try to make amends. I read the letter to Noah, editing slightly for his age and understanding. "What do you think?" I asked when I finished. "Would you like to write back to Grandma?" Noah thought about this seriously. "Maybe," he said finally. "But I want to tell her that I'm still mad about what happened and that she can't ever lie to me again." "I think that's perfectly reasonable," I told him. "Being honest about your feelings is important." Noah's letter to my mother was brief but powerful in its directness. "Dear Grandma, I was very scared when the water pulled me away. I thought I was going to die. I'm still mad that you told me Mom wanted me to go in the water when she didn't. That was a lie, and it was wrong. I don't want to come to the beach house again. Maybe you can visit us sometime if Mom says it's okay, and if you promise never to lie to me again. Love, Noah." I mailed his letter without adding anything of my own, letting his words stand on their own. 6 months after the incident, Noah's therapist suggested it might be time to attempt a controlled exposure to water again. "Not the ocean," she clarified quickly. "Perhaps a shallow indoor pool with you right beside him for just a few minutes at first." Noah was hesitant but willing to try. "Will you be in the water with me the whole time?" he asked as we changed into our swimsuits at the community center pool. The entire time, I promised. I won't let go of your hand unless you ask me to. We sat at the edge of the pool, just dangling our feet in the water at first. Noah's hand gripped mine tightly, but he didn't cry or try to pull away. After about 10 minutes, he asked if we could sit on the first step water up to our waists. You're doing great, I encouraged him. How does it feel? Scary, he admitted, but also kind of okay. The water isn't pulling me here. That's right, I confirmed. Pool water doesn't have currents like the ocean, and you can always touch the bottom here. We stayed for 20 minutes that first day, never going deeper than the second step. But it was progress, and Noah left feeling proud of himself. I did it, Mom, he exclaimed as we dried off. I went in the water and I wasn't too scared. You absolutely did. I agreed, my heart swelling with pride. I'm so proud of you. Over the next few months, our pool visits became a regular part of our routine. Noah gradually gained confidence, moving from the steps to the shallow end, and eventually agreeing to try floating on his back with my hands supporting him. I think I want to learn to swim for real, he announced after one such session. Not in the ocean, not yet, but in the pool. I think that's a wonderful idea, I told him. We can sign you up for lessons whenever you feel ready. That night after Noah was asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and reflected on the journey of the past 9 months. The terror of seeing Noah in the ocean seemed both distant and immediate, a memory that still had the power to make my heart race, but no longer consumed my every waking thought. My relationship with my family had shifted dramatically. Howard called weekly and had visited twice each time, respecting my boundaries and focusing on rebuilding trust with Noah. Tiffany and her family had visited once, and the cousins had rekindled their connection, playing for hours, as if the beach incident had never happened. Eleanor remained the most complex situation. Her letters had continued, each showing more insight and less defensiveness than the last. She had not visited yet, by mutual agreement that more healing needed to happen first. But the possibility no longer seemed unthinkable. Just that morning, Noah had asked if Grandma could come for his birthday next month. I think I'm ready to see her, he said with the simple directness of children. But you'll be there too, right? Every minute, I promised. As I sat with my cooling tea, I realized that the boundaries I had drawn in that hospital room had accomplished something I never expected. They had created the space for genuine change. By refusing to accept the toxic dynamics that had defined my family for decades, I had opened the possibility for something healthier to grow in its place. The process wasn't complete, and perhaps never would be. Trust once broken is rebuilt slowly, brick by careful brick. But we were laying those bricks now with intention and care. And in doing so, I was teaching Noah perhaps the most important lesson of all: that love does not mean accepting harm, that family bonds should strengthen rather than diminish us, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is draw a line and say, no more. A week after Noah's 7th birthday party, which Eleanor had attended sitting quietly in the background and following Noah's lead about how much interaction he wanted, I received a call from my therapist. Yes, I had started seeing someone too, recognizing that my own patterns and responses needed attention if I was to be the mother and person I wanted to be. I've been thinking about what you shared in our last session, Dr. Patterson said, about wanting to help other parents who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Yes, I acknowledged. It's been on my mind a lot lately. There's a support group starting at the community center for parents navigating boundaries with extended family, she told me. They're looking for someone to help facilitate. I immediately thought of you. The old me would have dismissed the suggestion, convinced I wasn't qualified, wasn't experienced enough, wasn't something enough. But the woman who had stood in that hospital room and drawn a line to protect her child knew better now. I'd like that, I said. I think I could help. The following week, I sat in a circle with 8 other parents, sharing our stories, our struggles, our small victories. As I listened to a young mother describe her fear of standing up to her overbearing in-laws, I reached out and took her hand. "The first time is the hardest," I told her. "But I promise you it gets easier. And the freedom on the other side is worth every difficult conversation." Later, as I drove home to Noah, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for most of my life. The journey hadn't been easy, and it wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more boundaries to enforce more growth for all of us. But for perhaps the first time I was moving forward, without the weight of seeking approval I would never receive without compromising my values to keep a peace that was never truly peaceful. That night, Noah asked if we could look at pictures from his birthday party. We scrolled through them together on my tablet, pausing at one that showed 4 generations: my father, my mother, me and Noah, all smiling tentatively, but genuinely at the camera. "We look like a real family," Noah observed. "We are a real family," I told him. "Just one that's learning a better way to be together." "I like that," he decided after a moment's consideration. "Learning is good." Out of the mouths of babes indeed. 9 months have passed since that terrifying day when my family left my 6-year-old son alone in the ocean. 9 months of healing, boundary setting, and rebuilding on new, healthier terms. The journey hasn't been easy, but watching Noah regain his confidence and seeing my family slowly transform has shown me that sometimes a crisis can be the catalyst for essential change. Have you ever had to draw firm boundaries with loved ones to protect yourself or your children? Share your experiences in the comments below. I read every response and would be grateful for your insights. Please like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. And remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's an act of love for yourself and those who truly matter. Thank you for listening to my story today.